Welcome to On the Table, a podcast about board games, card games, and tabletop war games. All right, welcome back to episode 72 of the On the Table Gaming Podcast. I'm Chase, and I'm joined today with Mike from Off the Wall Games. Mike, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on the show.
Oh, man. Okay, so for the longest time, I don't know if people know this, but Mike, you were kind of like the champion of the neutral faction. You were playing straight neutrals way back when the game first came out, and you know, really not as many people were doing that, and you stuck with it. Are you still playing a lot of neutral games?
Yeah, I'd say it's probably still my favorite faction, but I've definitely, a lot of the new Baratheon stuff's really been catching my eye right from the get-go.
Okay, so I knew with your kind of your analytic mind and your willingness to stick through with things even when it's difficult, that you'd be a good person to have come on talk about some Baratheon stuff. And so today we're going to look at the Renly side of the hero box with Team Renly, and I think Baratheons, maybe to go off the Renly metaphors here, are really starting to bloom with this hero box. So I'll insert as many flower puns as I can, but we'll see. So starting off, one of the things that really, I think, differentiates Renly from Stannis, their hero boxes. We're talking about the Stannis hero box last game, and it sort of hints at a bunch of different play styles that maybe, will be able to expand out and be developed. And it doesn't really double down on any one thing too much. I feel like with Renly, there's a lot clearer role, especially with their Rose Knights and the healing mechanics for the way their characters interact. So
definitely, they have a lot of inbuilt versatility as well.
Yeah, exactly.
From a neutral player, really caught my eye initially. I was getting tons of envy just looking at Shira Errol.
Oh my God!
Right out of the gates, because those are our two favorite zones. Is so always grabbing bag or letter, having an NCU that essentially doubles down on the effect of those two zones. So it's really appealing.
And now I think maybe you really were onto something here by specializing the neutrals in that experience. You can keep playing that faction, but when you switch to other factions, in some cases you can bring your commanders, but you can also bring in certain units that you've been practicing over and over again. And so you've got like kind of a built-in skill set that you can take with you when you play new factions. So I'll be interested. Maybe at the end we could talk about if you've been running any lists and if you've been including many neutrals in them when you do run them.
Oh yeah, I have a few things I've been working on that look really rewarding. So.
Well, let's start off by talking about the Rose Knights here. So this is a 7-point infantry unit, loyalty to Renly Baratheon. They got movement speed of 4, so they're kind of your typical Baratheon speeds. They hit on a 3+ at 8, 5, 3, armor 3+, morale 6+, but it's really their abilities that make them stand out. And they're pretty much loaded. There's not much more room left on their card. So Perseverance and Valor, each time this unit makes a melee attack before rolling dice, it may restore 1 wound, which is pretty useful. And then Dauntless, each time this unit passes a morale test, it may also restore 1 wound. And then Deadly Bloom, each time this unit restores wounds, 1 enemy it is engaged with suffers a wound. So we kind of have this like thorny, like we're going to prick you to death by 1,000 cuts going on.
Oh, this is absolutely one of my favorite units in the game. I have not hidden my love for them very well. But, no, just a fantastic unit overall. Just the stat line across the board is incredibly solid. Of course, their biggest drawback being their movement speed and then how quickly they fall off on attack dice, going from 8 to 5, which is a pretty big jump as far as most units go. But other than that, just the ability to heal themselves up with that recursion there, and then being able to bypass other units' defenses by dealing auto wounds is just so good.
Yeah, and I feel like, that is a huge drop-off. That's true. But I feel like on the Renly side here, this is a faction that is not wanting for healing mechanics.
Yeah, you're definitely incentivized to kind of keep these guys topped up. 8 dice hitting on 3 is just so good.
Now, when you've been making lists for House Baratheon, are you running, multiples of this unit? Does this in some way become like a core unit for you? or are you finding it's still kind of a little bit specialist? You still want your wardens and stuff like that to really be tanking mostly.
So I'll be honest, I'm a big fan of Warden spam first and foremost. Um, we actually have a fantastic couple of local players. Um, One of our local guys, Eric, has been championing um, Baratheon since release, and he's kind of been my main opponent. That he really showed me the strength of Wardens en masse.
Man, yeah, I love you guys. I love the way you approach your meta here, and I like that you guys just like you'll early adapters and you'll stick with it and kind of build your strategies from the ground up. When other people maybe will pass and say, I'm going to wait for Baratheons to get a few more units to be more competitive." I love
I
the
mean,
mindset you guys cultivate.
um, definitely. I think it's really easy to get discouraged, especially when you're new to the game. Maybe you just have your hero box or your starter and a couple other things. And the main thing we tell people is just to stick with it. First maybe even 10, 15 games. I know for me with neutrals, I was getting crushed initially, but when it finally clicked, it was night and day, and I haven't gone back since. So.
That makes sense. That's good advice, I think, just for everyone to hear. So jumping in then with our first commander available here, we have a new version of Renly. So it's Renly Baratheon, Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. He's got unwavering charisma, where he may not be targeted by the enemy's tactics cards or enemy influence effects. I'm going to try not to do this too much, but kind of comparing between Stannis and Renly. Stannis, the rightful heir, has an ability where he can't be targeted by condition tokens. This version of Renly can't be targeted by tactics cards or influences. Which would you rather have?
Yeah, that's a really tough one, actually. Of course, Renly's ability is something we haven't really seen elsewhere in the game right now, so it'll be interesting to see how much of an impact it has on the meta and on whatever unit he's in particular. Stannis' ability to just deny condition tokens, I feel, is very strong across the board. So hard to say without more games.
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, it's pretty amazing, though. I mean, just being able to ignore, I mean, especially I'm thinking of like influence effects. In my mind, I'm like calling back to all the times when I've been like crushed by some influence I wasn't expecting or wanting, or, man, I don't want to get, Walder Frayed on this unit. And just to be able to be like, yeah, I'm not about that life. I feel like that's going to be useful.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, because I feel Rose Knights in particular, one of those units, at least for me going across the table from, I would want to shut off their abilities because they have a lot of them. So maybe sticking Renly into that unit and preventing them from getting shut off. A really good way to just kind of keep your centerpiece unit in the battle.
And I feel like, what's been interesting to see is as new mechanics have rolled out, I think we've started to see like tiers of things be revealed that maybe in a year or two will be kind of more the norm. I know there's a lot of, concern when Walder Frey first came out. Spoiler, we'll get to talk about another NCU that shuts down things later in this podcast. But having things that might have immunities or grants things immunities, I think that might be an interesting balance point going forward. But okay, so Renly Baratheon, his first tactics card, Hidden Affairs. So this is one when a friendly combat unit containing attachment is destroyed. One other friendly combat unit that contains an attachment can make a free charge action against the attacker or may remove their activation token. That's awesome. And in a faction where you can have, what we're going to talk about in a second, Brienne, like these free attachment,
right?
You're going to be probably running, although you're talking about Warden spam. I'm seeing more smaller activation armies that are definitely having attachments in almost every unit. Maybe that's not the case for where you guys are playing, though.
Yeah, we actually tend to run pretty attachment light, more or less. We do see people trying to maximize activations a little bit more, except
this
for
kind of does
our
both.
Lannister players. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is really strong, especially for a faction that doesn't have a lot of movement speed. boosting abilities to get a charge out of activation is really strong.
I've seen a lot of people also trying to maybe build lists around this tactics card. I'm wondering if that might also just be a trap, though. I mean, this is super useful, but I'm always a little bit hesitant about tactics cards that are when you lose a unit. It's like when you're losing, you can do this thing, which can be great. It can turn the tide of battle. But if you're like, I want to maximize my activations here so that I can, when I lose a unit, I can do this awesome thing. I always wonder if that's maybe just like a trap that people might fall into.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because you do have the trade-off of if you take a ton of attachments, you are of course going to lose out on points that could be spent on entire other units. NCUs. That being said, at the same time, we do get the free attachment in the form of Brienne the Blue. And also one combination I really like with this version of Renly is running maybe 1 or 2 Stormcrow units.
Oh, yeah, that's a lot of moving their activation token. That's potentially a lot of shots in a round or attacks.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what Girvishes do.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could potentially be a really strong unit that would work with this. And if they do have the discount to attachments like other Stormcrow units, then that will be a very powerful combination right there.
He's also got Wealth and Cunning. If attacking, deal an additional D3 automatic hits, +3 hits if you control the letter zone. If defending, you automatically block D3 hits or 3 hits if you control the wealth zone. This happens, it's triggered when a friendly unit is attacked or attacks. Incredibly versatile. I think cards like this that you can use in a variety of situations, that's always a great thing. This might be one of his like go-to tactics cards.
Yeah, this is actually one of the core neutral cards. And when I saw Sheer Arrow initially, I thought, oh man, she would be so great in neutrals, specifically thinking of this card. And then now we have it here in Baratheon.
So your dream has come true. The stars have aligned.
Definitely.
And then finally, this one's a little bit more controversial here, and I'm going to make sure I get this right here. But in his brother Shadows. So first off, hilarious name, Shadows being plural. But it says when an enemy commander activates, choose one, cancel that commander's abilities. Renly's unit may make a free march or retreat action. So 2 of these options now, the wording on cancel that commander's abilities has raised some questions. And I'm trying to, now I'm going to speak out of turn here. I'm trying to make sure I get it right. I had been talking to Michael Chanel. So this is not an official statement here, but I remember mentioning it before the live stream.
I actually believe it was in the second live stream. This one came up, and they did clarify it was supposed to be until the end of the turn.
There we go. Yeah. So I was like, man, I hope I don't forget this. So a little bit of a typo there, and we're going to see there's one other typo in this set that came out. But kind of makes a big deal. There were some people saying like, well, then it's just the commander's abilities are gone for the game. And it's like, that seems a little powerful. So it's certainly not that. A useful card, another versatile card where you can choose different options. Shutting down an opponent, a commander's ability, always can be a clutch thing to do. And then if that's not something you want to do in that game, being able to get a free march or retreat action when your enemy's commander activates, like that's also great.
All right, this is just another really versatile card where, if you have a powerhouse combat commander and a unit coming at you, one I can think of is the Mountain. Being able to maybe shut him off for a turn might keep a key unit alive, or you could use it offensively to maybe in the early game to move up one of your own units to get in a better position.
Yeah. And then for attachments, Brienne the Blue, we kind of mentioned her already, a 0-point attachment, which is phenomenal especially for what she does. Renly's Protector. Each time Renly's unit is attacked, after the attack has been completed, this unit may make a free attack or charge action targeting the attacker. That attack gains +2 attack dice. Oh my gosh. Good grief.
And a free attachment at that. So, and it should be noted it works with both versions of Renly. So I find it
Yeah.
difficult that I would imagine any list in which I was running Renly and I didn't also take Brienne.
Yeah, and that's awesome. It's thematic. It definitely helps you fill out your attachments though. And but it's just great having that free attachment. Like, ah, gosh, I'll take free anything. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's so good.
And then also, I think as you spoke earlier about the movement elements, and like it's going to give you, that extra charge action, or at least a free attack. That helps with your kind of action economy in general. Anytime you're attacking more times around, that's great. Um, yeah.
And all the free charges in faction now. Um, if you look at counter charge, which I believe is in the normal Baratheon deck,
Hmm.
and you just start tacking on all these other abilities, you're going to get a surprising amount of movement from the Baratheon.
Yeah. Then we got Loras Tyrell, the Knight of Flowers, another commander option who's got Expert Duelist. Each time this unit makes a melee attack against an enemy infantry unit, it deals 1 additional wound. If there is an attachment in that unit, you may instead roll a die on a 3+, kill that attachment. So I don't know about you, but I remember when I first started seeing this ideas of like Expert Duelists come out. Um, I thought, picking off key attachments, this is going to be something that people online like complain about being like way too powerful. And yeah, I don't really see that maybe at all. When you see somebody play a unit that has Expert Duelist, is that something that you're concerned about playing into? Are you like, oh man, this is going to be really problematic?
Definitely an underappreciated keyword. The only other attachment I could think of in the game that has this is the Kingsguard version of Jamie.
Right.
And
Who
I
I
think
don't see often at all.
no, and he's fantastic.
Like
That's kind of
what's
my
going
little.
on there, guys? Why is this not a thing? Like, am I missing something?
Yeah, I think it's just hard to fit those 2 points in sometimes, but to be able to get this on a commander is just fantastic.
Right.
It's going
And
to
I
make
guess like
whatever unit.
realistically over a game, how many different units with attachments maybe are you engaging?
I think it's really just having the threat of it there. Is
Yeah.
your opponent really going to want to engage your unit if they have a 2 to 3 point attachment, or even their own commander risking combat with you? Um, and even if they don't have an attachment, you're still doing a consistent additional wound, which also means an additional panic test.
Right.
Or I
And
should say panic test.
yeah, right. A panic test. I mean, that's great. A guaranteed. And so then he's got his first tactics card, Growing Strong. When a friendly NCU claims a tactic zone, replace the zone's effect with, you may restore up to 3 wounds total and remove up to 2 condition tokens from any number of friendly combat units. I feel like this is just put in there to mess with my Mance Raider play. Good God. And you can spread it among the units. So if you had like multiple Rose Knights, you could ding them each for a point of healing and have them trigger off their wounds.
Oh, it's so good. And being able to remove condition tokens on top of doing those wounds. I think this is probably one of the most versatile heals in the game.
And that's what I feel like as it keeps coming across, as I keep talking about versatility. I feel like the Renly Hero box, there's a lot of like immediately useful things that right now, even with their one unit that's been released, you're like, oh, I see how this combos. Not a lot of mysteries at this point. Loved by the Small Folk, his other tactics card here. When a friendly combat unit activates, if they're within short range of Loras's unit, they roll +1 attack dice and gain Sundering. I mean, I guess that's okay. I mean, it's not like earth-shakingly amazing, but definitely useful.
And I like this too. It's also good on range attacks as well.
Oh, nice.
So actually, my regular Baratheon opponent, he's a big fan of Stormcrow archers in his Baratheon lists, and I think this is a way, maybe short of taking Stormcrow lieutenant on the unit, you could take another attachment and then still gain the benefit of +1 die and something.
That's true. Yeah, that'd be a nice combo.
Courtney Penrose giving you the +1 hand size.
Right.
And a unit of Stormcrows.
I like that combo there. And then Overgrowth, when a friendly combat unit makes a melee attack before attack dice are rolled, for each enemy rank destroyed by this attack, this unit may restore D3 wounds, even more healing options. So, going to be great for maybe things like your Rose Knights that already have like a high damage output, 8 dice hitting on 3s. You're probably going to be able to get a rank down. And then you can hit your Deadly Bloom again.
Yeah, it's just a really great attrition piece in general, especially when you're maybe finishing off the last 1 or 2 wounds in a rank, and then something like your Baratheon Wardens or maybe your Sentinels stay in the fight a little bit longer.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sentinels I've had some problems with my misplays.
They're surprisingly squishy.
Yeah. And then we got Loras Tyrell, the King Squire. He's a 2-point infantry attachment. And for 2 points, he adds precision. Hits from 6 don't allow defense saves. I mean, precision is always helpful. Now, I know a lot of people swear by only taking precision with critical blow. Sure, that's better, but precision is still useful to have. I don't know if we have that many things with incredibly high dice pools at this point.
Right.
But maybe with time.
Again, this is one I'm hoping the dervishes will be a good pick for. But even then, gets a little expensive, but you can put this on a unit of Sentinels to really put the hurt on something. Rose Knights as well. If you have maybe 2 points left over and you don't really want to upgrade one of your NCUs, this is just a solid attachment.
And then we have Eldon Estermont, the Lord of Greenstone, as another infantry commander. He's got knowledge and insight. Each time this unit performs an action, you may discard 1 tactics card to place any 1 condition token on an enemy within short range. So discarding tactics cards for condition tokens is a great mechanic. That makes him pretty powerful. The problem is his tactics cards that he brings are all pretty good. I don't know if I want to be discarding many of them. So the first one is Battle Endurance, which is an amazing card. So when a friendly combat unit makes a melee attack, before you roll your attack dice, you gain the following bonuses, and they're cumulative. So if it's a round 3 or later, you get +2 attack dice. 4 or later, +1 to hit. 5 or later, Sundering. So you could potentially be on turns 5 or 6 giving +2 attack dice, +1 to hit, and Sundering to a unit's attack before you make your attack roll. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's such an interesting commander. We really haven't seen a lot of abilities like this in one place. This one definitely favors kind of the attrition play style of the Baratheons.
And not only that, then it's like by the end of the game, when like your guys are all beat up and you're trying to finish off these units, they're still hitting back hard.
Oh yeah, terrifying. And the effects are cumulative. So +2 dice, +1 to hit, and Sundering is absolutely brutal.
Like 2 pluses or something, yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
I'm this whole character just makes me feel like I'm gonna have to play into it a bunch of times to really like understand the ins and out, because the next tactics card, Hefty Ransom, is another one that like I have a hard time wrapping my brain around. When a friendly combat unit is destroyed in melee, you gain 1 victory point. The attacker may then restore up to D3 +1 wounds. Especially as a free folk player, great, I got 4 wounds, but you got a victory point. It keeps you tied up. It's harder. Like, so if I got a point for killing your unit, like you keep tied. You'd stay with me. So I've got to really watch out for your end game now, because you're going to be either staying even, or if you already have a lead, you'll just keep maintaining that lead.
Right, and this card alone easily makes Eldon Estermont a top tier commander. I really think he might be kind of the sleeper hit in this box.
I mean, I just feel like in the hands of really skilled players, yeah, exactly. It's going to be brutal.
You tend to see, especially in higher levels of play, that you really do have a lot more kind of 1-for-1 exchanges. It's few and far between in those types of games where somebody really just overwhelms you and gets a decisive advantage.
Right.
So having something like this that I can't tell you how many games I've lost by 1 victory point. Having something like this is So incredibly powerful.
And then, speaking of not enjoying playing against it as free folk, martial superiority. Here we go. When an enemy combat unit attacks before attack dice are rolled, the attack rolls -2 dice. So, or rolls -2 dice and loses any abilities until the end of the turn. If they're attacking Eldon Estermont's units, they become weakened. So my giant can stroll on up there, and all those posts on Facebook when people are like, "Hey, if they hit me with 1 die, can I cancel or block it?" And you're like, "No, it generates a hit." Well, you're actually rolling no dice then. So, and you're losing your abilities of Mighty Swing. So you could just completely negate a giant's attack and not have to worry about him. That's scary.
An incredibly powerful card, and works great on ranged attacks as well.
Oh my gosh, I keep forgetting the range attack piece, and that's really true. Yeah. Then we also have the attachment for Eldon Estermont. He's got the Venerable Knight attachment. Now, here's the other typo that people noticed, and I think it caused some confusion on the app, in that the printed card for this, on the front of it, it actually says Lord of Greenstone again. So it looks like you have 2 Lord of Greenstone cards, but on the back of this NCU, it has the correct name of Venerable Knight. So Eldon Estermont Venerable Knight is the NCU version. I can see there's probably going to be some confusion out there, and people are like, "Wait, it has the same name on one side." But he's got Elderly Caution, and whenever Eldon claims a zone on the tactics board, you may replace that zone's effect with draw 3 tactics cards. Place one of those cards at the bottom of your tactics deck, and the rest in your hand. Oh my gosh!
I love this. Baratheons really are one of those factions that really do like their cards a lot. And having something like this that can really help you cycle and look for the ones you need at a given time is just so strong.
So is that going to be his biggest detriment to his commander, which is amazing, is that his NCU is a 3-point NCU, which is also great.
Exactly. There's if I'm not running Eldon as a commander, I'm probably taking him as an NCU.
Whew. And then we've got Courtney Penrose as the NCU commander. He's got Castellan's Duty, which is an influence. And when he influences an enemy combat unit, each time that unit is targeted by a tactic zone, one of your combat units within long range may restore D3 wounds.
Now, this is the kind of commander that I think would run really well with maybe a elite lower activation army. Maybe if you're running 4 combat units, I think this will really help you mitigate any sort of activation advantage your opponent might have.
Yeah, and I think, especially being able to have your free NCU, you can pump some numbers up there and run your, 3 NCU build with him rather effectively. And then all his cards are phenomenal here. So defensive counter, when an unactivated friendly combat unit is attacked with melee, before attack dice are rolled, the attacker becomes weakened and loses their abilities until the end of the turn. Great for keeping your guys alive, and it's just a good card that you can put down and react to really any situation with.
Baratheons really do like their weakened tokens.
Yeah. And then counterplot, I mean, that's, gosh, that first card is amazing. The second card, counterplot, now in the same guy having them. When an opponent plays a tactics card, roll on a 3+, cancel the effects of that tactics card. If you control the crown, you may re-roll this die. Yay, more counterplots out in the world. Now I got to worry about that again.
It's nice to see more of them. I mean, that's your classic counterspell card.
Right. And all those guys that were loving Tyrion and playing Tyrion are now going to be like, "Oh, Courtney Penrose, he's not looking so bad. I think I might jump over to him." Because we haven't even talked about his final tactics card, Surprise Strategy. At the start of any turn, the opponents may not play tactics cards this turn. Remove this card from the game instead of discarding it when played. If you control the tactics zone on the tactics board, you may also return 1 tactics card from your discard pile to your hand. I mean, anytime you can shut down your opponent's tactics for a turn, it really gives you a nice safety net for maneuvering, right? It's kind of nice to deal in absolutes regarding the board state and be like, okay, there's nothing you can do to mess with me right now.
So this is actually another core neutral card that was ported over here. So Courtney Penrose really dips his toes into a lot of other factions, but um, this card is so good. I mean, you can use it offensively if you're about to attack one of your opponent's key units, and maybe he has something like Wealth of the Rock or Countercharge, something like that. You can shut off any defensive responses, and then you can also use it on your side to prevent any combat tricks of the opponent. And then just being card recursion is always good.
And then
being able to maybe pull back. Actually, to be able to reuse a counterplot alone is probably worth it right there.
Yeah, I mean, you could potentially run 4 counterplots in a game.
That's pretty evil, actually.
That's not bad. And then Courtney Penrose also has an attachment, a 2-point attachment, reliable Castellan, and he's got bookkeeping. So as long as Courtney Penrose is on the battlefield, you gain +1 to your tactics hand size. So I think you mentioned earlier maybe tossing him into a Stormcrow unit at a -1 point cost then.
Yeah, I think that might be the best way to do it, especially maybe a unit of archers, something you can keep back, keep a little safer, maybe play more of a control game in the early game, and then until you have the cards you need.
Absolutely. And then back to NCUs here, we've got Marjorie Tyrell, the Little Rose, 4-point unit, 4-point NCU. And it's got a rose and its thorns. Whenever Marjorie claims a zone on the tactics board, you may restore 1 wound to a friendly infantry unit or deal 1 wound to an enemy infantry unit. So it's nice in that this isn't a replace effect. It adds on. But what do you think? 4 points. That's a lot of points.
It is. I think the fact you mentioned, which is not a replacement effect. You still get a very solid NCU that is incredibly versatile. Being able to maybe heal up your Rose Knights and get an extra wound, you're actually doing a little extra damage there.
So I feel like, if you build that list right, she'll be great. But I can see if you just kind of haphazardly put some together, maybe you wouldn't be able to maximize her quite as much.
I think just more the issue there being so many good options across the board for 4 points.
I mean, or just even, I keep going back to like Eldon Estermont and being like 3 points. Those tactics cards. But the damage output with the Rose Knights. I mean, I feel like that's another example where it's a clear synergy with that unit.
Exactly. And just another way to get them doing consistent damage every turn. I think if you're running multiple units of Rose Knights, she might definitely be worth spotting your list. And then too, we'll see whether or not this Deadly Bloom mechanic sees its way onto any other units.
Yeah. Gosh, I mean, I can't imagine a bunch of faction units that had that. That would be insane. But our final, last but not least, I mean, kind of not only an iconic character in the books and the show, Olenna Tyrell, the Queen of Thorns, pulling weeds as the NCU. She's 5 points. When Olenna claims a zone on the tactics board, one enemy NCU loses all abilities until the end of the round. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, this is so good.
She's a bully.
Yeah, exactly. I was thinking of taking her maybe alongside Walder Frey and just having a couple.
Oh my God, you're a jerk!
Completely shut down the game.
You're so mean. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's pretty good.
But she's just so strong, and I think if you were ever going to run a 2 NCU list and maybe a 3 NCU meta, she would probably be the way to go and just kind of help you even the odds.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think on that, you mentioned that live stream earlier, and it was on our YouTube channel, but Michael Chanel came on twice actually, and he was talking about the Targaryens, and we asked him about what does he think about like the kind of the 2 NCU versus 3 NCU metas, and he was saying there's like kind of other things coming out that will enable there to be more options. In fact, units that for the Targaryens that let them, get extra attacks in, or kind of just hinting at this idea that you can make up for a lack of tactic zone presence another way. So I think it's kind of interesting to be starting to think about things and how can you control the tactics board or control the board state, either through nullifying your opponents or finding gains that you would normally rely on the tactics board elsewhere.
I think this is definitely going to be one of those NCUs that if I'm in a tournament, I'm thinking I might come against Baratheon. This is probably what I'm worrying about.
But the thing is, like, 5 points. I mean, that's a unit of Baratheon wardens against, some lists you're going to take her and you're going to be like, oh, man, like maybe not the best thing at this moment. But then other lists you play against, just being able to shut down like a linchpin NCU, so good.
This is a great counter to Walder or Varys or just any of those strong NCUs.
Yeah. Gosh. Pretty amazing. So I think right now, I think out of the Baratheons, we kind of talked about this before with Stannis. I think his hero box kind of sets up like 3 or 4 different styles of play. Where Renly's, we're seeing the card draw, we're seeing some healing, we're seeing some more healing. It's maybe a little bit clear right off the bat, and it synergizes with those Rose Knights really well because I think it's always easier to get work out of a unit if you know you can be keeping it alive. And 3+ armor and a bunch of healing benefits. I feel like that's something that's have a little bit more sustain.
I think it's going to be really strong. I think being able to do consistent auto wounds throughout the course of the game while keeping your stuff alive is really going to benefit players who get locked in early.
I'm a little sad because with all these new hero boxes, my Giants squishing Baratheon days might start to become numbered. There's a lot more ways to do auto wounds on Giants now.
That's true.
You said you've been working on some top secret lists here. Any things you might want to tease or share?
Yeah, I would actually, I have a few I've been working on, but let's see, is there a commander we want to do?
One of the ones that's been getting a lot of attention is Renly Paramount.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so we have core of this list is going to be 2 units of Rose Knights.
2 units of Rose Knights, okay.
And then 1 unit's going to have Renly Baratheon, Lord Paramount of the Storm. And then the other is going to have Brienne the Blue.
Okay, I see. That's some good synergy already. These guys can
right. 2 very strong units that work well together. It's going to get a lot of out of activation movement just from Renly's cards and Brienne's abilities, ideally. So that's going to mitigate one of the main weaknesses of the Rose Knights. And then the other one I like here for just early positioning shenanigans is going to be Stormcoat Archers with Courtney Penrose. Just having that extra card per turn. Don't be afraid, especially as a Baratheon player, to definitely draw as many cards as you can in the first 2 to 3 turns. Anytime that tactic zone is open and you can grab the letter, do it unless it's going to cause problems for you. And then I'm going to have just 2 units of Baratheon Wardens with Master Wardens.
Okay.
That's just such a durable unit. You really don't want your Rose Knights taking big charges if you can help it. They do have the tools to kind of mitigate it and come back, but taking a big hit on them is still going to result in them dying a little bit sooner. So Wardens are just one of those units that you can very comfortably put on your flanks or put across from a scary looking unit of your opponents and move up and get into position.
Yeah, and tie them up.
So they're great, and I always try and take at least 1 unit of Wardens with a Master Warder in every Baratheon unit I make, every Baratheon list I make. And then for our 2 NCUs, we're going to have Sheer Arrow, of course. Now this one's actually really good with Stormcoat Archers because you can use her ability to claim the bag and then place a condition token on one enemy unit, and then fire with the Stormcrow archers into that unit.
And so then you can kind of custom it to make them either reroll their armor, to reroll that panic test, depending on the units.
Test. Yeah, really, really strong ability there. And of course, with wealth and cunning as well, that's going to be just another MCU that will play off of that ability really well.
All right, so you got 4 points left. Now I want to see what's your final pick here. Where do you go?
So this is an interesting one here. This is going to be Tychronosaurus.
Ah.
Being able to just spread those heals out, once per game at start of any turn. You can either use that offensively to maybe heal up the Rose Knights a little bit and get extra damage in. Maybe if you can do it, to get yourself over the rank threshold to get additional dice on an attack. And then it's also just really defensive. If you have a unit holding an objective and it really needs to live, giving it 5 wounds back will usually make that happen.
Yeah, interesting. So that's a pretty... So now I guess the idea would be to get both Rose Knights using Brienne the Blue engaged on the same target and just get those auto wounds going through them.
Yeah, that's probably the meanest thing you could do. They would not be incentivized to attack Renly's unit at all with Brienne around.
Right.
So kind of running them in a buddy pair like that is going to force whatever unit to go after Brienne first. So you can use that to your advantage for sure.
Gosh. And it's each time the unit's been attacked.
That's correct.
Good God. I'm just thinking I was like, I could bait that out with something with a Free Folk Raider unit. But it's like, oh no, it just keep coming. They're just going to keep killing stuff.
That's a free charge with 10 dice on the attack.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. Oh, man, it's going to be fun to play against. I got to find some strategies here.
That'll be fun.
Well, this is awesome. I'm so excited where the Baratheons have landed here. And this is just a hero box. We only have one new unit for each faction. So, or for each loyalty. So, I mean, this is going to be so cool seeing this faction develop as a whole.
And this is just a faction that really mechanically caught my eye, and just what it was doing and how I like to play the game.
No, really smartly designed and developed here.
Yeah, I think it was Fabio Curry. This was his faction that he put together. So well done.
Yeah, phenomenal. And it's just cool seeing everything come together in these pieces like that. I mean, it's about time. This faction was a little slow rolling out, I'll say. When it came out in August, and now it's now that we're starting to get the releases, it's like, oh man, this thing's awesome.
I think the new release schedule model is really helping as well. Just getting more stuff on the table.
Yes.
Each faction at a time, and there's still tons of stuff we haven't even seen yet that we know should be here within the next few months.
So I'm excited. So thank you so much for coming on and talking Baratheons. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure. Always a good time talking to you.
And we'll have to get you. Well, hopefully you're staying safe, and hopefully we can get some games in when everything clears up. I feel like I'm gonna be restless when this ends, when the quarantines end.
I would say, get some painting done. I've been working on getting my units looking really nice.
Sweet.
I think everyone's taking this time to do a little hobby.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks so much for coming on, and everybody, will catch up with you next time. Stay safe. And in the meantime, I hope you get your miniatures on the table.